Hello all, welcome to Mindful Movement of a Mandala flow. So the flow is going to be moving you around the mat in all directions. So we'll be seeing all four corners, all four sides. And it's just a really lovely flow that gets you to connect a little bit more internally and also gets you to connect a little bit more to my instruction. So when we're doing Mandala flows, we very much connect the elements of the world to the elements of our own body. So when it comes to the earth element, we think about our bones, our skin, and how we find connection to the earth and the grounding and stability to the floor. When it comes to the water element, we think about the blood that flows through our body. Our body is made up of 80% of fluid, and this helps create flexibility and helps us navigate through our life. The fire element is the fire in the belly, the one that heats up the system, allows us to move with intention, creativity, it makes us feel alive and gives us solution to our lives. We also think about the air element, which is around the lung capacity, the breathing in, and this brings compassion and empathy out from ourselves to the external world. And then we think about the element of space. So the element of space is having the freedom from thoughts, and it's all within the mind area, so it allows us to feel anchored, present and very aware of where our bodies are in space and where our thoughts are in space. So those 5 elements that exist in nature exist within our bodies too. So let's get on with the flow. We're going to make this mandala flow extremely simple so that you can either do this one first before you maybe do the vinyasa one, which is a little bit more challenging. So we're going to come to a child's pose place. So bringing the big toes together at the back of the mat. Bring our sit bones back towards those heels. Widen the knees as wide as you wish to take them. Maybe just have a little rock of the hips from side to side before we bring those chests down towards the floor. Either walking the arms and hands all the way to the front of the mat, or taking a slight bend in the elbows just to let a little pressure out of those shoulders. That forehead coming onto the floor just to find a little support for the neck. And just take a moment here to scan from the fingertips down to the toe tips, just having a check-in with how your body feels today as you've arrived on the mat. Knowing that if you're practicing earlier, it may be that your body's still a little stiff from sleeping. If you're practicing later, maybe your body's a little fatigued from your daily work, or whether it's the middle of the day when you've had a nice relaxing morning, the body's moved a little bit, the body's warm, and that body can move a little freer as you move through the flows. So knowing at the time of day you practice makes a difference to how your body moves. Take a long breath in through the nose, take a long sigh out through the mouth. Then take it to breathing in and out through the nose if you can. On your next breath in, walk the hands over to your right side of the mat. Just place your left hand on top of your right. Just find that lateral flexion of the spine as you move that body towards the inside of that right thigh. Encouraging the left sit bone back towards the left heel. Breathing that breath in and out through that left rib cage, expanding on the inhale, reducing on the exhale, that element of air, that breath. Then walk the hands back through center, take them over to the opposite side, right hand on top of left, breathe the breath into that right rib cage, nudge that right sit bone back towards the heel. Remember, the heels and sit bones don't have to touch, just an intention to get there. Then let that chest sink to the inside of that left thigh. Then walk the hands back into center. Take a breath out here in your neutral space. Then thread your left hand underneath your right armpit. Bring that forehead back to the mat. Just stretch those shoulders, those deltoid muscles on that left side, just for a couple of breaths. Then that right hand, bring it behind the back. Push into that left forearm. Just take a little rotation of the waist turning the gaze and the shoulders to the right side of the mat. Holding it here just for a breath. Then reach that right hand back out, bring the forehead back to the mat. Bring the left hand back out to meet the right. Just settle in neutral spine for a breath. Then thread that right hand underneath the left armpit, turning that forehead back to the mat. Try not to squeeze my microphone here. Holding it just in this space, stretching that right shoulder for a moment. And then taking that left hand behind, pushing into that right forearm, turn and twist through the waist, turning the gaze to the left side, lifting that left shoulder up slightly. A little rotation through that spine. Then reach that left hand back out to the front of the mat. Bring that spine back to a neutral place, back into child's pose. Then walk the hands just a little closer towards the body so the heels and sit bones are still close. Do a little bit of spinal articulation in this space. So as you breathe in, try and push the rib cage forward, the chest forward, lift the gaze. Maybe just lift those tailbones up a little. And then as you breathe out, push into the hands and send the centre of the back towards the back of the room. Tucking that chin into the chest. Take it into these two different places. Breath in, expands the front of the body. Breath out, we expand the back of the body. So we're just taking this slight our spinal articulation in a different position to tabletop. We're trying to get a little openness through those hips. When you've done a couple more of these to your breath, find then a neutral position. Bring the knees back together. So keep that left hand down, raise the right hand up, arm to the ear, then lift open the chest to the right. Feel that thoracic extension through the back, sit bones towards the heels. Bring that right arm back up and over, bring it back to meet the left. Then push strong into the right hand, raise the left arm to the ear, and then open the chest up to the left side, sending that left hand towards the back of the room, expanding that thoracic extension. Bring that left hand back down to meet the right. Take it again on the other side. So push into the left hand, lift the right hand up, twist, lengthen, lift through the chest. Send that right hand back to meet the left. One more time on the left side. Push into the right hand, raise the left arm, and feel the expansion of that thoracic spine. Bring that left hand back down, come up onto the hands and knees. Just give the hips a little move from side to side. Then bringing yourself into a plank position, stepping both feet back to the back of the mat. Then start to lift the hips as we paddle the feet to a downward facing dog. Have a little nod and a shake of the head. Bringing one heel down at a time. Get in the stretch through the back of the legs, but in more of a dynamic way, so those back chain of muscles don't feel you're going to try and overstretch them too soon. Then when you're ready to bring the heels to stillness, encouraging them to the floor. Maybe you want to keep a little bend in the knees here. Maybe you want to straighten the legs to their full extent. The heels don't have to meet the mat. It's just a thought of maybe getting them somewhere close sometime soon in the future. Have a little nod and shake of the head. And then slowly walk the feet to the front of the mat, bending the knees as much as you need to bring those feet to the front, underneath the shoulders, to let the chest sit over the thighs, take a hold of the elbows, let go of the neck. Have a little nod, have a little shake. And then release those arms to be heavy. Slowly curl up through that spine, one vertebra at a time, to bring yourself all the way up to standing. Breath in, raise the hands to the ceiling. Breath out, bring the hands to the chest, fold from the hips, maybe bend the knees to bring the hands back to the floor. Breath in, come up to a half lift, maybe straighten the legs. Breath out, release the hands back down, step your left foot back, drop that back knee, uncurl those back toes, raise the arms up to the ceiling, bring the palms together at the top, relax the shoulders down, lengthen up through the hands. Tailbone tucks under, belly draws back. Holding it here for another breath. Then release the hands to the floor, tuck the back toes under, lift up the back knee, walk the hands around to the left side of the mat, toes in front of the heels, tabletop back, fingertips touching the floor, bend the knees if you need to bring the hands down. Then as you breathe out, start to lower with the head, just bringing it to wherever it reaches. Again, if those knees need to stay bent at the moment, keep those knees bent. Then your next breath in, come up to a half lift, walk the hands around towards the left foot, so we're facing the back of the mat. Drop down that back knee, uncurl the back toes, raise the hands up to the ceiling, lift them high, relax the shoulders, that low lunge position. Push into the front foot, push into the back foot. Nice strong grounding, stability into that earth element. Then bring those hands down either side of the left foot, bring the left knee back to meet the right, step both feet back to a plank, lift the hips and paddle the feet. So moving those heads a little, relaxing those shoulders a little. Now we're taking that downward facing dog to the back of the mat. Bring those heels to stillness. Come forward to a plank position. Drop down the knees. Bring the elbows by the body as you release to the floor. Take an untuck of the toes, push into the hands and lift up the chest. Release that chest down, tuck under those toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs. Push into those hands, push into those feet. Lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back. Take a gaze back towards the toes and have a nod and shake of the head. Start to walk the feet now towards that back of the mat. Bringing them underneath the shoulders. Let the chest sink over the thighs. Take a hold of the elbows, nod and shake that head. Then your next breath in, raise the hands up towards the ceiling. Palms come together at the top. Bring the hands to the chest. Start to fold from the hips. Bring the hands back to the floor. Step your left foot back, keeping the knee off the mat this time. Keep a bend in your right knee, the back leg straight. Raise the arms up towards the ceiling to come into your high lunge position. Sink a little lower in the hips. Relax the shoulders, widen the fingers, engage those forearms. Feel that strength in the belly as you tether those ribs and hips towards each other. Maybe take a little bend into that back knee, tuck that tailbone under, then straighten that back leg out, keeping that tailbone tucked. Then bring the hands to the chest, turn the shoulders around to the left side of the mat, toes in front of the heels, hands on the hips, roll the shoulders up towards the ears, send them back down towards the back pockets, and then as you take a breath out, come to a half fold. Place the hands on the mat. Left hand stays on the floor, right hand raises up, and we turn to the right side. Right hand up to the ceiling, the gaze up to that thumb. Then bring that right hand back down to the floor. Place it where the left hand is, left hand lifts. Turn the shoulders, maybe raise that gaze to that left thumb. Then bring that left hand back down. Allow the body to fold over those legs. Forehead pointing down, the crown pointing to the floor. Your next breath in, come up to a half lift. Place the hands on the hips, breathe out. Breath in, come all the way back up, shoulders over the hips. Turn your left toes back to the front of the mat, come onto the toes of the back foot, sink the hips low, raise the arms to your high lunge. Soften that back knee, tuck under that tailbone, then straighten that right leg back out a little further. You should now be facing back to the front of the mat. Left knee bent, right leg straight in that high lunge position. Tether those ribs and hips. Your next breath out, bring the hands down either side of that left foot. Step back with the left foot, lift the hips back to down dog. Have a little nod, have a little shake of the head. Come forward to a plank position and drop down the knees. Bring the elbows by the sides of the ribs as you release down to the floor. Take an untuck of the toes, push into the hands and lift up with that chest. Release that chest down, tuck under those toes. Bring those chests back to those thighs. Push into those hands and feet as you lift up those hips and squeeze those heels back. Start to walk the feet towards the front of the mat, keeping the hips high, the knees bent as much as you need to. Bring the feet underneath those hips. Take a hold of each elbow, let the head hang. Give that head a nod, give that head a shake. Release the arms to be heavy as you breathe in. Bring those hands back up to the ceiling, palms come together at the top. Bring the hands to the chest on the out breath as you fold back over those legs. Bend the knees as much as you need to bring the hands to the floor. Breath in, raise up, half lift. Step your right foot back to the back of the mat, keeping the knee off the floor. Raise the arms up to the ceiling into your high lunge position. Bring the hands to the chest, your right elbow on your left knee, and rotate to the left side of the room. Hips stay low, left knee bent, right leg straight, encouraging the right heel back as far as you can. Lifting the kneecap with the right thigh to engage that upper part of the thigh on the right leg. Use the arms to help the twist come a little more. Twisting through that digestive system, working those internal organs, firing up that belly, that element of fire. Bring those shoulders back to face the front of the mat. Turn the shoulders then to the right side. Toes in front of the heels, hands on hips. Roll the shoulders up to the ears. Back down towards the hips. Bring the hands behind you, interlace the fingers. As you breathe out, fold over those legs, making sure the toes are in front of the heels. Start to point the crown to the mat. Maybe lift those hands away from the spine. Maybe soften the knees if you need to, if those hamstrings are still a little tight. Use long, easy breaths in, that air element, expanding the lungs and the rib cage on the inhale and relaxing them down on the exhale. Then bring those hands back to the lower spine. Start to lift up through the torso. Shoulders come back over the hips. Turn back to the back edge of the mat. So right toes face the back edge. Left toes, we're coming onto them. Bend that right knee. Raise the arms again back up to high lunge. Bring the hands then to the chest. Palms come together. Left elbow, right knee. Rotate to the right. Breathe in, elongate the spine, breathe out, find some twist. So we're facing the back of the mat here. The right foot's forward, the left foot's back. So we're making our way around that mat, seeing all four corners, all four sides. a different proprioception of where our body is in space, continually listening to my instruction as we walk through these poses. Release those hands down either side of the right foot. Step the right foot back to meet the left. Lift the hips back to a downward facing dog. Have a nod, have a shake of those heads. Come forward to a plank. Drop down with the knees. Bend the elbows backwards. Graze those ribs. Release the chest to the floor. Untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under the toes. Bring those chests back to those thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips and squeeze those heels back just for a breath. Then start to walk the feet back to the front of the mat, keeping the hips high, bending the knees as much as you need to. As you get to the front, let the chest sit over the thighs, take a hold of the elbows, let go of the head. Your next breath in, raise those hands again, all the way back up to the ceiling, palms come together at the top. Bring the hands back to the chest, start to fold from the hips, bending the knees as much as you need to. Breath in, lift the chest, straighten the legs. Breath out, plant the hands, step your right foot back. Find high lunge legs, back knees lifted. Raise the arms to the ears, lift the chest away, just 45-degree angle from that left thigh. Relax the shoulders, lengthen the arms, draw that belly away from that left thigh. Back leg straight, front knees bent. The shoulders are almost stacking over that left knee rather than over the hips. Holding ourselves in this challenging position of a 45-degree high lunge. Next breath in, lift the shoulders over the hips, turn towards the right side. This time toes pointing out, heels pointing in. Bring the hands to the chest, take a little squat into our sumo squat position, trying to lower the hips as much as you can, tucking the tailbone under, drawing the belly backwards, lifting that lower belly. Push into those palms and activate those arms. Next breath in, straighten up through the legs, turn around towards the front of the mat, toes of the left foot, whole of the front foot, raise the arms, high lunge, move to that 45-degree angle of high lunge. Again, draw the shoulders down, lengthen the arms, pull the belly back, push that left heel to the back of the mat, bend into that right knee, challenging those muscles in the back to hold that torso in this slight awkward angle. Next breath out, release the hands down, step the right foot back to a plank. Drop down with the knees, bend the elbows backwards, bring them by the side of the ribs. Take an untuck of the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release that chest back down, tuck under the toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs, push into the hands, push into the feet, lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. Then start to walk those feet slowly back to the front of the mat, keeping the hips high, bringing the feet underneath the shoulders, shoulder width apart. Bend the knees, take a hold of the elbows, let go of the head, give that head a nod, give that head a shake. Then your next breath in, lift up with the arms, shoulders over the hips, straight bodies, hands to the ceiling. Bring the hands to the chest, start to fold from the hips. If you need to bend the knees to bring the hands to the floor, bring the hands down. Step your left foot back, drop the back heel, hips and shoulders face that front edge of the mat. As you raise up, warrior one, palms come together. So we're turning that left toes out to the top corner of the mat. We're still bending into that right knee, back leg straight. Shoulders and hips facing the short edge. Try not to flare the ribs too much, maybe gaze up to those hands, challenge that balance. Still keeping the shoulders relaxed. Holding here just for another breath. Then straighten that front leg, turn the shoulders and hips, toes in front of the heels. Breathe in, relax the shoulders on the breath out. Next breath in, elongate the spine. Next breath out, fold from the hips. Another breath in, elongate. Breath out, let the hands come down the legs, maybe grab a hold of the ankles, the outsides of the feet. Use the strength of the arms maybe to pull that torso a little closer towards those thighs. Long, easy breaths. Next breath in, come back up to a half lift. Bring the hands back to the hips. Breathe out. Breath in, bring those shoulders back over the hips, standing tall, wide-legged. Turn to the back of the mat. Turn the right toes to the right corner, left toes forward, hips and shoulders facing the back edge of the mat. Bend into that left knee, back leg stays straight. We've got an external rotation of that right hip. Bring the palms together at the top. Maybe gaze the hand to the hands. Feeling those hips coming a little bit lower, pushing into the outside edge of that right foot. Try not to flare the ribs too much. Try not to dump into that lower spine. Nice, easy breaths as you hold warrior one to the back of the mat. The next breath out, release those hands down either side of the left foot. Come onto the toes of the back foot. Step the left foot back to meet the right. Lift up the hips back to down dog. Taking a gaze back towards the toes, the knees or the hips, stretching through the back of that neck. Then your next breath in, come forward to a plank position. Drop down with the knees. Bring the elbows to the ribs as you release to the floor. Untuck of the toes, push into the hands and lift up the chest. Release that chest down. Tuck under those toes, bring those chests back to those thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet. Lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back just for a breath. Then start to walk the feet back to that short edge of the mat at the back of the room. We're facing away from the camera. Just let the chest sink over the thighs. Take a hold of the elbows, let go of the neck. Your next breath in, bring those hands up towards the ceiling. Bring the palms together at the top. Bring the hands then to the chest. Start to fold from the hips. Bend the knees if you need to bring the hands back to that floor. Breath in, half lift, straighten the legs, straighten the back. Breath out, step your left foot back. Keep a bend into your right knee. Heel toe the right foot out to the side. Raise the arms up to the ceiling. Bring the hands then behind the back. Interlace the fingers, push the hands down to the floor. Lift up the chest and then bring that right shoulder towards that right knee. Keeping the hands clasped at the lower part of the back. Gazing down to the inside of that right foot. So we're trying to encourage the right hip back, the left hip forward, shoulders squeezing together, creating some space in that chest, creating that space for that air element to move around those lungs. Next breath in, lift the chest, turn the shoulders towards the long edge left side, toes in front of the heels. As you breathe out, fold over those thighs, bringing and pointing the crown down to the mat. If you wish to lift those arms up, still with those fingers interlaced, stretching through those shoulders, relaxing through those necks. Then bring those hands back to the lower spine. Start to lift that chest back up. Shoulders come back over the hips. Turn back to the front side of the mat. Heel toe the left foot out to the side. Come onto the toes of the back foot. Hands are still interlaced at the bum. Find that stability with the legs a little wider apart. Then as you breathe out, keeping the hands at the lower spine, just bring that left shoulder towards that left knee, gazing down towards the inside of that left foot. Keep the shoulder blades squeezing together. Then bring the hands down to either side of that left foot, heel toe the left foot back into the middle. Plant the hands, step the left foot back to meet the right into a plank position, then lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. Take a nod, take a shake of that head. Come forward to a plank position and drop down the knees. Bring the elbows by the ribs, release that chest to the floor. Untuck of the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release that chest back down, tuck under those toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back, just for a breath. Then start to walk the feet towards the front of the mat, keeping the hips high, bending the knees, bringing the feet underneath the shoulders. Take a hold of the elbows, let go of the head, let the chest sit over those thighs. Maybe just have a little movement with the elbows in one direction. Take them to the other way, a little traction through those shoulders. Release the hands to become heavy. Start to curl up through that spine, one vertebra at a time. As you bring yourself up to standing, roll those shoulders back. Take a moment in Tadasana, mountain pose. Close the eyes, connect back with that breath. Nice long, easy breaths in. Long breaths out. Feel that stability in the earth. Feel that blood rushing through the body. The heart rate is raised. Feel that fire in the belly. The expansion of the lungs as the air gets brought in. And the contraction of the lungs as we squeeze that element of air out. Just notice how we're present, how we're listening to instruction. That space in the mind. Your next breath in, raise the hands back up to the ceiling, palms come together. As you breathe out, fold from the hips, slowly bring the hands down to the floor. Next breath in, come up to a half lift. Step your right foot back, drop the back heel. Windmill the right arm up and over. Keep the left knee bent to find warrior two. Sink the hips low. Push into the feet. Relax through the shoulders. Lengthen up through the waist, up through the crown. Energetically pushing into the outside of the right foot, the whole of the left foot. Everything from the crown to the pubic bone stacked. That energy center from the base of the spine all the way up to the crown of the head. Straighten that left leg, turn both sets of toes then out to the corners of the mat. Palms come together at the chest. Bend into the knees, come into a sumo squat facing the right side. Tuck the tailbone under, draw the belly back, lift up the lower belly. Relax the shoulders. Stack those shoulders over those hips. Then straighten back up through those legs. Turn your right toes to the back of the mat, left toes to the long edge. Arms out, shoulder height. Bend back into now your right knee to find warrior two, facing the back of the room. This time energetically pushing out to the outside edge of the left foot, but also pushing into that big toe edge of the left foot. Right knee, we're externally rotating it out. The tailbone is tucked, the bum's tucked under to try not to pinch that lower spine. Feel that engagement between the ribs and the hips. Then bring those hands down either side of that right foot. Come onto the toes of the back foot. Step your right foot back to meet the left. Lift the hips. Back to our down dog, gazing back towards the toes, then towards the knees, then towards the hips. Come forward to a plank position. Drop down with the knees. Bring the elbows by the sides of the body as you release to the floor. Take an untuck of the toes. Push into the hands, lift up those chests. Release that chest back down. Tuck under those toes. Bring the chest back to those thighs. Then push into the hands and feet as you lift up the hips. Squeeze those heels back just for a breath. Then slowly work the feet towards that back edge of the mat. Bringing the feet underneath the shoulders. Chest sits over the thighs. Take a hold of the elbows. Let go of the neck. Maybe take a few circles back the other direction with those elbows. Release the arms to be heavy. Curl up through that spine all the way back up to standing. Roll the shoulders back. Standing mountain pose for a couple of breaths. Next breath in, raise the hands up to the ceiling. Breath out, bring the hands to the chest. Start to fold over those hips, bringing the hands to the floor. Next breath in, half lift. Breath out, step your right foot back, drop the back heel. Keep the front leg straight as you wingmill the arms up and over. Both legs straight, then reach with the left hand, bring it to the inside of the left leg as that right hand lifts up to the ceiling to take triangle pose to the right side of the mat. Feel like somebody's putting a piece of glass on the front side and the back side of the body, taking this body into that plane of movement, that frontal plane, side bend. One more breath here with that left shoulder stacking under the right hip back, left bum cheek tucked under. Then lift those shoulders, use the strength of the obliques, turn the toes pointing out to the corners of the mat, hands come together at the chest. Bend the knees, sumo squat. So we're bringing ourselves eventually back around to the front of the mat, having done 3 rounds on both left and right. Straighten up through the legs, turn the left toes to the long edge, right toes to the front short edge, arms out to shoulder height. Reach forward with the right hand comes to the inside of the right leg, the left hand lifts up to the ceiling, gaze up to that thumb. Feel those planes of glass, squeezing that body in between with hardly any space, front to back. Try not to lock out that right knee. Keep a micro bend there, just protect those joints, switch on those muscles. Then bring those shoulders back over those hips, oblique muscles, switch on to lift, bend that right knee, bring the hands down to either side of the right foot, step your right foot back to meet your left. Lift the hips, squeeze those heels back, gaze back towards the toes, knees, hips. Create space in the shoulders. Your next breath in, come forward to a plank and drop down the knees. Untuck the toes. Release the chest to the floor. Roll through, up. Lift up the chest. Release the chest back down. Tuck under those toes. Bring those chests back to those thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back. Slowly walking yourself to the front of the mat. We're going to take a couple of standing balances just to find that equilibrium of the body, that balance. Bend the knees, slowly curl up through that spine, one vertebra at a time. Roll the shoulders back. Bring your weight into your left leg. Lift your right knee up to hip height. Bring the hands together at the chest. Reach back with the right heel. Come forward with the torso. Holding it here for a couple of breaths. Warrior 3 with our hands at the chest rather than having long limbs. Try not to let the right hip lift too high. Try and keep it in line with the left. Nice straight line from the crown of the head down to the heel. Hold on to something in front of you if you need to. Then slowly bring that body back up. Bring that right knee back forward just for a breath. Then release that right foot to the floor. Put your weight into your right foot. Lift up with your left knee up to hip height. Focus on something in front of you. Then as you send that left leg back, bringing that torso parallel to the floor, left hip in line with the right, left heel hopefully as high as the hips, head in line with the hips also. Then bend that right knee, bring the left toes to the floor, turn all the way around to the back of the mat, step forward onto your left foot. Bring your right knee through. Turn the right knee out. Bring the outside of the right ankle onto the top of the left thigh. Bend that left knee. External rotation of the right hip. Left knee bent, supporting that body. Bum tucked under, belly drawn back. One more breath here. Then straighten up that left leg. Bring your right foot back to meet the left. Bring your weight onto your right foot. Lift your left knee. Bend into your right knee. Left ankle onto the top of that right thigh. Left knee turns out, figure 4, facing the back of the room. Stability into that standing right leg. Grounding into the earth. Focus on something in front of you. Something that's not moving. Trying to challenge that balance and find that equilibrium of the body. Straighten back up through that right leg, bring that left knee back to hip high. Then step that left foot to the back of the mat. Turn around back to the front of the mat. Step forward onto your left foot. Bring your right knee through. Toes of the right foot back towards the shin. Bring your left hand onto your left hip, your right hand onto your right ankle. Bring your right knee down to meet the left, right foot into the bum. Push the hips forward, stretch the front right thigh. The more you push your hips forward and bring your right foot into your bum, the more stretch you'll feel through that right front side of the thigh. One more breath here. Then release that right foot back to the floor. Bring the weight onto the right leg. Left knee lifts and bends. Take a hold of that left ankle with the left hand. Bring that left knee back to meet the right. Squeeze that left foot into the bum. Align that left knee. Push those hips forward. Keep that focus. Keep those breaths coming. Keep those thoughts out of the head by using that anchor of the breath, a nice clear space in the mind. Then release that left foot back to the mat. Take a paddle through the feet. Take a breath in, raise those hands up to the ceiling. Palms come together at the top. As you breathe out, bend the knees, bring the chest to the thighs, hands to the floor. And then step both feet back to a plank position. Lift the hips back to down dog. Come forward to a plank. Drop down the knees, untuck the toes, bring the sit bones to the heels, shoulders over the hips. Breathe in, bring the arms up to the ceiling. Palms come together at the top. Take a hold of the wrist with the right hand and lateral flex over to the right side of the mat. Come back to the center, swap the grip of the wrist, left hand grips the right, and lateral flex over to the left side of the mat. Keep those tailbones tucked down, ribs and hips tethered. Back to the centre. Bring your left hand to the right knee, your right hand behind the back, twist to the right. Bring the hands back up to the ceiling, palms come together. Bring your right hand to the left knee, left hand behind, twist to the left. Bring the hands back up and back to the centre. Cactus the arms, lift up the chest, flare those bottom ribs. Bring the hands back up to the centre. Bring the hands to the knees. Push the ribs and chest forward, arch the back, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Take it in the opposite direction, tuck the chin under, send the centre of the spine to the back. Bring it back to the middle. Swing the legs around, come down onto your back, finding the shape of a bridge. So heels coming towards the bum, hands down by the sides of the body. Knees hip width apart, feet hip width apart. Push the feet into the mat, slowly lift the lower belly so the lower spine comes away from the floor first. Then it travels all the way up through the centre of the back, through that thoracic spine in between the ribs, coming to rest on the cervical spine. Make sure there's some space on the back of the neck. Feel like you're squeezing the knees, a ball in between them. Push into the big toes, push into the little toes, holding it for a breath. Then with control, slowly and mindfully, feel every vertebra come back down to the floor. Heel toe the feet out to the sides of the mat, let the knees drop internally. Cactus the arms, elbows in line with the shoulders. Take your knees over to your left, your gaze over to your right elbow. Just stretch those hip flexors on the right side. Get into that stretch of the waist. A little rotation before we take it into bringing the knees into the chest. Bring the knees back into the centre, gaze back up to the ceiling, let the knees drop internally. And then without moving the feet, take the knees over to the right side, the gaze over to the left side. Feel that twist of the body. Bring those knees back into the centre. Let them drop internally for a breath. Heel toe the feet back into the middle. Let the knees drop out to the side, soles of the feet stay together. Bring the hands onto the hips. Just allow a moment, stretching the inside of those thighs. Maybe having a little rock of the knees from side to side. Just getting into that lower part of the spine. Then bring the knees in together, bring them into the chest, give the knees a squeeze, keep the lower spine grounded, the shoulders plugged down, space through the back of the neck, feel that compression through the hip flexors, the stretch of the lower back. Then bring yourself into your relaxation space, whether that's knees bent and dropping internally or legs straight. Bring the hands down by the side of the body, turn the palms up, let the fingers gently curl. Close the eyes, soften the jaw, let the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth, and let those lips gently part. Feel the grounding and support of the earth, the heart rate slowing, and that blood rush around the body coming a little slower. The fire of the belly is starting to reduce, to cool the body down. The breath is slowing, that air is entering and exiting a little slower. The mind is relaxed and calm, space for that intuition and wisdom, that discernment to know which path you need to take in the future. Take a long breath in Long breath out. Let the whole body give to the earth. Relax, grounded, supported. The elements of nature are within us and every one of us. Feel free to stay here for as long as you wish. Have peace in your thoughts, have peace in your words, have peace in your hearts. From my heart to yours, Namaste.